Okay, so what I've done is I've muted everybody so I can get through the presentation. Michelle's with us as well, so if you have any questions, Michelle's going to make note of them and make sure that I look at them before the end of the presentation so that we can get them answered. So we're going to talk about AudioScribe's remote Scopist today. We're going to talk about the minimum requirements to install and utilize remote Scopist, support options, things that the remote Scopist needs to understand in order to properly utilize the program, the main menu, including button bars and icons and drop-down menus, importing a job from the court reporter, what are you getting from the court reporter, connecting remote Scopist to the cloud, which is encompasses connecting to your Dropbox, how to edit a job using the remote Scopist. I'll mention some hotkeys, some audio control keys, and how to bring in cover and certificate pages if you're doing that for your reporter. Then we'll talk about sending a completed job back to the court reporter, whether that's back up to the cloud or just as an email. And we'll talk about how to remove a job once you've completed it and turned it in. And then we're going to just talk about a little bit of troubleshooting some of the most common problems that we see. Okay, minimum requirements to install and use the current version of Remote Scopist. Windows 7, 8.1, or 10 is required. We prefer Pro, but it does work on lesser operating systems. We do strongly suggest that you utilize Pro. The computer must have a sound card or a USB audio device with playback abilities in order to listen to the audio as you edit. You should have at least 2 to 4 gigabytes of RAM on the computer. You should have at least 250 gigabyte hard drive, though you will still need to delete completed jobs on a regular basis so that you don't overload your system with audio. Remember that audio files are very, very large. You will need internet access to register the software, and you will need to have internet access as well if you're going to download jobs from Dropbox or some other file transfer protocol like USendIt or Hightail. You will need a headset. We suggest the Spectra SP VC5 headset, and it ranges in price from $22 to $40. You can also use external speakers that are loud enough for you to hear even the quietest response. You may utilize an IN USB 1 or USB 2 tri-pedal, foot pedal, which can be purchased from many places, including eBay, Amazon, Dictation Mall, Transcription Gear, and the price can vary from $17 to $90. I have not found much of a difference other than the difference in price. Okay, support options. It's important that reporters know and Scopists know that AudioScribe does not support remote Scopists at no charge. So should your Scopist, or if you are the Scopist, if you need assistance, please know that email support is free, as is forum support. But we don't normally answer those right away, as phone and dial-in support is our first priority to paying customers. So please be aware that if you have an urgent need, you should call in to the 1-800 number, and you should be prepared to pay $75 an hour for phone or dial-in assistance prior to receiving assistance. Pardon me. I do suggest that you read the manual. We are updating it right now, and so it is not at its best, but we hope to have it updated within a few weeks. I do also encourage you to visit the forum. We do have a forum where you can get support for free, not only from us, but from other people using the remote Scopist or SpeechCat. Okay, things that the remote scopist needs to understand in order to properly utilize a program. The sound system of your computer is important because you are going to be listening to most likely multiple channels of audio. If you are listening to a stereo track and you have external speakers, you're going to hear channel 1 on the left speaker, channel 2 on the right speaker. If you don't have a stereo capable headset, you may not be able to hear the second channel. That has everything to do with the type of headset you use. If you're having that problem, disconnect the headset and use the speakers on the computer. It's important to know where to plug in the headset. Most computers do have a very obvious port, but most computers also have the ability to show you where all their ports are. You just need to access the help for the actual computer that you're using. You should know that many computers these days come with combo ports, and so you won't have a mic in port and a headset out port. You'll have one port that is actually combined. For the remote scopist, this should not matter. It should not be an issue because you're not recording. You're only listening. In regards to the File Explorer, it's really important to understand what the File Explorer is because it is a wonderful way to look for files. I'm going to minimize this and we're going to go to the File Explorer. And in the File Explorer, you can see all of your documents on the hard drive. So if you go to this PC, you'll pretty much, everybody will see the same thing. You'll have program data, which is where all your program information is stored, things that you create in those programs. So under AudioScribe, if it's remote scopist, you'll probably just see transcriptionist, and you'll see that all of your audio files will be in one place, all of your cases will be in one place, all of your text will be in one place. It's really important to get to know the File Explorer. It can really benefit you in what you do. You can find help on any Windows application or feature within the computer or online at Microsoft.com. Okay, how to check for Windows updates. Let's go see if we can do that real quick. The easiest way to check for Windows updates is just to right-click on your desktop and go to Personalize. It's going to give you this little box up in the right-hand corner. And if you just type in the box, how do I update Windows? You hit enter, and it'll tell you what it normally tells you. Windows Update Settings. There we go. So we'll click there, and it's telling us that updates are available. If we go to Details, we can see that what we're having updates for, and it's saying that it requires a restart, which means you're going to have to turn off your computer and turn it back on. We're not going to do that right now, but as you can see, there's a very easy way to go and make sure you do your Windows updates. It is a good thing to do. Okay. That's another thing I need to talk to you about. If you ever have remote Scopist having a huge problem, you should be able to find the remote Scopist executable in your downloads folder from the File Explorer. And all you have to do is double click on the rs10exe and that'll rerun the program for you. It will not harm any of your data. It will only put back any files that may have been lost from the remote Scopist. and that's really important. So it's important that you know that it's easy to rerun it should you need it. Okay, what is the name of your sound card? I tell you this because you need to hear audio in what you do. In order to make sure that your sound card is working correctly, you need to know what it is. If you right click on your desktop, or if you go to the speaker in the lower right hand corner, this is a big blow up of what my speaker in the lower right hand corner normally looks like. If you right click on this little speaker, you can click on playback devices or recording devices. It's going to take you to the same dialog. It just depends on what tab you're going to go to. If you click on playback devices, you're obviously going to go to the playback tab. And if you click on recording devices, you'll go to the recording tab. You should notice that your sound card will be in both the playback and recording tab, and it should be set as the default device. In order to make sure it's set as the default device, you can right click on it and click on set as default device. And there you go, it'll be set that way. If you don't have other USB audio devices, you won't have to worry, it'll be set like this by default. Okay, here I'm just basically giving you an idea of what your computer looks like when it has a combo port compared to both an audio in and an audio out port. This is what the older computers looked like that had both an audio in and an audio out. Today, most of our computers are a combo port, and they'll only have one hole. It might have a headset image next to it, and then it might have holes that are actually the microphone in. So it's just listening to ambient sound. You can't plug anything into it unless you get a splitter like this, which has a mic on one of the inputs and a headset on the other. You would then plug this part into the computer's combo jack, and then you would plug your microphone into one and your headset into the other so that you could still use the combo port for both listening and recording. Again, this may be irrelevant to you as a scopist. This is the remote scopist main menu. As you can see, you have access to all of the jobs that you've imported, as well as the buttons and the drop-down menus that you need to accomplish common tasks. The import button and the cloud drop-down menu are your primary sources for bringing jobs into your job list from your court reporters. The button bar and columns on the main menu are all labeled here. New allows you to create a new job. Scope, which is here, this is new, this is scope. It will actually open the scope screen so that you can edit the text of the selected job. The next button is the Receive Scope Real-Time Feed button, and it's used when you receive text feed from a reporter in real time, and then you're actually sending it out back to the courtroom for the recipients to read. This is used in very rare cases, usually extremely high-profile cases, where they want 100% accurate real-time by the time it gets to the judge and the attorneys and the other participants in the court. This button with the green arrow on it is the Present button, and it's used to move a job to the word processor after being scoped. We move jobs to the word processor to add graphics like the federal box or graphic lines, headers, footers, line numbers, and page numbers. The next button is Copy Job. This icon, is more for when it's really used more for reporters than for remote scopists. Should you have a need to copy the job, usually it's because you don't want to fill in all the job replacement fields a second time. That's what copy job is for. It allows you to not have to put in all the information in the replacement fields. Okay, the next button is the import button. That'll open the import menu, which provides the end user with the opportunity to attach other audio files to the job, as well as import jobs, import styles, import conflicts and brief forms and word swaps. So if ever you want to share these with other remote scopists, the import button is how you bring things in. The export button is all about sending things out. So you can import from your court reporter, you can import from other remote scopists, you can export to your court reporter, you can export to other scopists. And of course the options button is going to bring up your options dialog, which is discussed in great detail in the manual. These are the drop-down menus on the main screen, and this just gives you an idea of the many things you can do with Remote Scopist. You can access the manual to find out more about any one of these many features. This is the import dialog, and as you can see, I have highlighted import jobs because that's the thing that you're going to use the most of. And you want to make sure that when you are importing jobs, that you are including the audio, because the court reporter is going to be sending you audio. And remember, that's what you're going to be using for text verification. So it's very important that you make sure that include audio is included. So that you know, we do not normally include voice data because that is only used for correction, and correction is something that the court reporter must do for themselves. The cloud feature, this gives you, yes, Jenny, I will notify you. Thank you for that question. Jenny asked the question, will you be notified when the manual is ready? Yes, you will. What I will do is I will post it on the forum in the Remote Scopist temporary licenses section, as well as in the customer notifications that the manual has been updated and is available for download under the Remote Scopist thread. In the manual, you'll also see these instructions for signing in to Dropbox and setting up the cloud feature on your Remote Scopist computer and your primary computer if you're a reporter. If you're a remote scopist, you would install the cloud feature on your computer if you want to use Dropbox in our cloud feature. This presentation will be posted immediately following completion. I will post the PDF of this with these instructions on the Remote Scopist thread on the forum so that you can download it and follow these instructions in order to get set up. Again, these are just more detailed instructions on how to set up the cloud in Dropbox so that you can start using this. It's extremely convenient. It is free if you have a free Dropbox, and you don't have to use any of the other services that may charge you for transferring data. These are instructions on how to download a job from the cloud. The only thing you need to remember, again, that is true whether you're importing from a CD, a flash drive, an external hard drive, or from the cloud, you must never extract the zip files. When you export a job, it creates a zip file. When you're importing that job, you are importing a zip file. When you're downloading it or uploading it, you're uploading and downloading a zipped file. You do not want to extract those zips. SpeechCat and Remote Scopist does that for you when you pull them in. Uploading a scope job transcript only. What you may want to remember is that as a remote scopist, when you are done with your job for your reporter, there is no need to send the audio that you downloaded back to your reporter because the reporter has the original audio. which is the exact same thing you have. And so it's going to go much, much quicker if you simply upload it without audio. And what you'll see here, my example is just letting you know that from the scope screen, you can click on Job and Save as Rich Text File, save it on your desktop so that you know where to go grab it from your email, and you can just email it as well back to your reporter because, as you all know, rich text format files are not nearly as large as audio files, so it's not going to be a problem to just email it back. So that's an option as well, but you can upload transcript only as well. Here are just some tools, some of my personal favorite tools for expediting the scoping process. Using brief forms, meaning that you type in something that is brief. My first example is XB. I type in XB and the words direct examination by in all caps appears right there in my screen as I'm typing. Same thing with CEB. I type in CEB and hit either the space bar, the tab key, or the enter key, and that will expand CEB to cross-examination by. Word swap is definitely another of my favorites. Word swap is for when you have sounds like words. In other words, the reporter said, "Were you there the day of the shooting?" And it writes the wrong there. Now, this happens very rarely these days because Word has gotten so much smarter than it used to be, and context is so huge that you don't see this kind of need anymore. Word swaps today have really developed more into a solution for people's very specific problems. For instance, I used to say, "Yes, sir," and it would write, "Yes, or." And so I could add a word swap for "yes, sir," and "yes, or." I would swap them out. Now, normally what I'd probably do a real-time rule for that as opposed to a word swap. But word swaps are really used these days more for the reporter's own problems. So you may have a reporter who always gets, every time they say this one word, another word appears. So you could create a word swap knowing it's just for that one person, but knowing it's going to be there when you need it, and put in the two words that don't work. That way, when you're on the word, you just hold down the control key and hit Y, and it'll bring up the next option that you delineated for that swap. The reformat keys are absolutely terrific. Sometimes the court reporter will get going so quickly, or they'll cough or sneeze or yawn right in the middle of a word, maybe even a marker, so that the marker does not come out. So instead of saying SP1, it just heard P1. And so it writes PEA and then space ONE. Well, what you can do is, hit Control D to get rid of both of those words, and then just hold down the Alt key, hit the R key, release, and hit the number of the speaker. So if it was speaker 1, I would do Alt, down on Alt, hold, hit the R, release, hit the 1, and speaker 1 would appear, and my text would be properly formatted based on the style that I'm using for this case. And remember that the style comes with what the court reporter sends you. So you don't have to worry about whether or not it's the right style because the court reporter selects the style. That's their job. So when they send it to you, the style has already been selected and predetermined. And when you hit Alt R1 or Alt RQ or Alt RA or whatever, it will already be in their style because they're the ones that decided what kind of proceeding it was. So all you get to do is use it. You don't have to worry about it. There's also much more in the manual on the reformatability. I will tell you that court reporters are getting extremely fond of the untranslates feature. They may have come across a word or a name while they were dictating that was just a real mouthful. And so instead of saying this supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, they decided to say tran one everywhere in the job where the person said that obnoxious word. Well, in the text that you're seeing, you're going to see asterisk untran one asterisk. Well, there may not be a word in the untran field, but if you hear it and you say, oh, I see what that word is, let me look it up. You look it up, you type it into that untran one field, and then you click on reformat in scope, reformat, fix corrected markers, and it will change all those untran ones to that obnoxious word in one fell swoop, kind of like find and replace. That is a really powerful thing. Know that you can do the same thing with speakers. Let's say that the reporter put down 3 speakers for the depot that you're editing, scoping, but they never actually typed in the name of the 4th speaker that walked in the middle of the proceedings. But you can hear that at some point they refer to Mr. Jones. And so you say, okay, that speaker 4 is Mr. Jones. And at that point, if you go and type Mr. Jones in all caps, colon, you don't have to put in the colon, I'm sorry. You Mr. period space Jones in all caps, and you hit reformat fix corrected markers again, it will replace all the speaker 4s with Mr. Jones. And so that's a really powerful feature as well. Some of my other favorite hotkeys in Scope are the control period, which will insert a period, 2 spaces, cap next. Control question mark, which will insert a question mark, 2 spaces, and cap next. Selects the word that you're on. That way, I'm not quite sure why I would select a specific word. Maybe if I wanted to copy the word or cut the word and move the word, I might select the word. Initial cap, you only have to be on the word. The word does not have to be highlighted. Same thing is true for all caps. Control the cursor movement. That's really neat. I prefer to move by character. So if I'm using the right arrow key and it's moving from word to word, I would hold down the control key and I would hit the W one time. And that would change it from word movement to cursor movement. So it's a toggle. It goes back and forth. The next one, control hyphen, is to stitch a word, such as you would need to do when someone is spelling their name. The double quote, single quote, it's going to enclose whatever's highlighted. So if you have your cursor on a word and you do control open quote, it's going to quote, single quote, just that word. But if you highlight 6 words and you do control single quote, it's going to single quote those 6 words. Exact same thing happens with double quotes. Those are toggles, which means if you do it once, it puts them on. If you do it again, it takes them off. Delete word, control D and control delete work. I find control D is much easier for me. I can keep my hands on the main keyboard and it deletes the word that the cursor is on, in front of, or behind. Comma enclose and parentheses enclose is exactly the same as single quote and double quote. If the cursor's on one word, it'll comma enclose that one word, or it'll parentheses enclose that one word. If multiple words are highlighted, it will comma enclose those multiple words or parentheses enclose those multiple words. Okay, the export menu. Again, where scopists are concerned, you really are going to be using export jobs more than anything. And you are going to be using the export job only to export a job back to a court reporter. And as I discussed earlier, since you are not going to include audio, please do notice that there is no box around include audio. And that means that you are not sending audio back to the court reporter, because remember, you don't have to, they already have it. The most common problems that we hear when it comes to troubleshooting remote Scopist has to do with the initial install, which is not listed here. A lot of people forget to turn off user account control. Those instructions are the very first thing you see when you see the instructions from us on installation and registration of the remote Scopist application. So just remember that you have to turn user account control down and you need to follow the instructions. It's important to look at the instructions. If it was so simple that you didn't need instructions, we wouldn't write them. So when you're installing or reinstalling, please do open the instructions and look over them before you actually walk through it. You're going to be much more successful if you do that. The other thing that we hear a lot of is that maybe they can't hear the audio. And the first thing that you need to look at is the blue playback counter moving? If it's not moving, you need to reinstall the VLC. If the blue counter is moving, check to make sure that the volume slide bar in scope is turned all the way to the right, which is the highest level. Depending on your speakers, or if you don't have external speakers, it may just be too low for you to hear. So make sure that maybe your speakers are plugged in or your headset's plugged in, and listen via your headset and see if the volume is all the way up. That's important. If the blue counter is moving and the volume in the left panel is all the way to the right and you still are not hearing anything, make sure that your sound system is set to the playback device that you are using to listen from. We discussed that a little bit earlier. Are you trying to play back from the voice track? Remember that the voice track stays with the court reporter. They do not export their voice data for you, so there should be no audio on the VT track. Your audio should start on channel 1, and it will depend greatly on how many channels of audio your court reporter is recording. This is the one other problem I could think of. If you guys can think of other problems that you've had, please let me know, because I'd like to add it to this presentation for others. If you are on Windows XP, that is your operating system for your remote Scopist computer, you will need what we call the XP fix, because your computer probably won't behave with remote Scopist very well without it. Please just send an email to support@audioscribe.com and request that you be sent a link to the XP fix. This is just real quick instructions on how to reinstall the VLC. The VLC is the player that AudioScribe uses for all of its products. So whether you're on SpeechCat, Remote, Scopist, Transcriptionist, Digitran Lite, Digitran Pro, or Media Controller, you're using the VLC for playback on the current versions. And if it is not 2.1.5, then you are going to have a problem hearing. If it has updated itself, it will be 2.2.1. That is not what you want. You'll need to uninstall it and reinstall it. And these are instructions on reinstallation. You'll see it in the document that I post to the forum later on this afternoon. So that is the majority of what you need to know for remote Scopist. I would very much like it if you guys had any questions that you wanted answered. I'd be more than happy to answer them, or actually show you how to do something. Any questions? No questions? Well, do you have a rough estimate of how long it takes to upload? That's a really good question, Jenny. I don't, but I tell you what, I have a job that I did yesterday from a meeting that we had, and it was over 2 hours. So I will upload that job to Dropbox and I'll time it. And when I post this on the forum, I will give you an idea of how long it took to upload the 2 hour job. One thing that you should know as a reporter, Jenny, is that we now have compression back in SpeechCat. And so if you're uploading the job for yourself or for someone else, you may want to compress the audio of the job before you upload it. Okay, that is a very good question as well. Michelle's making a statement more than a question. Michelle's statement is it is going to be based on your internet speeds at home or wherever you upload or download it from. That is so true and such a good point. It will always depend on your upload download speeds wherever you're uploading or downloading it from. But we will do it here, and perhaps Michelle can help me to figure out what our download speed is at the time. That way I can give you a rough estimate of upload download time so that you will know. And perhaps I can compress it and upload it again afterwards and give you that comparison. Oh, yes. Jenny brings up another very good question. She wants to know how many channels I was using because that will make a difference. That's a great point, Jenny. That will be another thing that makes a difference as to how long it's going to take to upload, how many channels you are recording. Any other questions? You've been a super audience. I very much appreciate you guys making time to come and sit in for this class this morning. I'm going to go ahead and in the meeting now. I will have this recording available. Should any of you like it, please send me an email and I'd be happy to give you access to download it if you'd like it for someone else or for yourself for future reference. Otherwise, I will be posting the PDF on the forum within the hour. Thank you. Thank you both so much for joining. Thank you all for joining. You all have a wonderful day.